Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Let me start my presentation. So, I'm covering tea culture around the world. So, what exactly is tea? Tea is a beverage, just like any other beverage, which a lot of us consume. Um, while on day-to-day basis, and like most of the beverages, be it tea, coffee, or alcoholic beverages, we all consume beverages for you know on day-to-day basis for socializing, to just when we meet or greet someone, and things like that. So let me just start my presentation with tea. In India, tea, which is commonly known as chai, is usually had with milk and sugar. That's the normal way of having tea in India. Very few people go the other way, although the trend is changing recently with a lot of green tea and a lot of other types of tea coming in. Here you can see two photos. One is pure Indian tea, and the other one is again getting into the Indian culture. But then this is how tea is infused and consumed across the globe, when had in offices or places like that, where you can't use a teapot and things like that. So these are a few memes on tea that we normally like to discuss and speak on. When a Yamraj is asking you कोई आखिरी ख्वाहिश, you will say कि बस एक अदरक वाली चाय दे दो. Or when you see a chai and samosa, you just start saying control उदय control, because you really can't control chai and samosa. That's the normal Indian way. Maybe vada pav in a lot of parts of India, or any other snack that goes well with tea, the black tea that we're normally talking of. Just to give you a brief on myself, I am a MBA finance professional by profession, and I have a lot of hobbies. One of them is collecting tea, coffee, honey, and other drinkable substances like hot chocolate and other drinks that go well with water and milk. So that's just one of the hobbies. I also collect some coins and notes and things like that. And being part of the hobby club, which has given me the platform to go ahead and share my knowledge on tea today. Um, let me take the opportunity and share a few things about tea that I know about. Okay, so we all know tea. Tea has a brief history. Tea basically originated from China. That's the history going into it. And all types of tea across the globe come from one single plant. So the plant that that's the botanical angle to tea. The plant across the globe is the same. It's the same name, same plant. It is no different. Whether the tea is grown in Kenya or Sri Lanka or India or China, it's always the same plant that has been used. That plant is supposedly moved from China to India to Persia, or say Middle East, um, during the Silk Route time. And a lot of history on tea I have learned through my professor, Kurush Dalal sir, who is an archaeologist and who also runs Katie's Kitchen. That's the that's the Parsi catering business which he's into, and he's given a brief history on tea, where he shares stories of how tea was how tea was brought from China to India by the British. The tea saplings were stolen from China and brought to India twice or thrice, and then India was never a tea drinking nation in general. Say 100 or 200 years before, tea was never part of Indian culture. And yes, it is strange that today, when we speak of tea, tea is part of our everyday life. But then earlier, tea was never so. Through through China, tea has been very popular, especially when a Portuguese princess married a British prince. She got the tea culture into Britain, and since then Britain has gone mad about tea, and has ensured that wherever they go across the globe, the tea culture is brought up. So here, if you see the map, you can see that all the nations where tea has traveled through land is in the orange color, where the tea is popularly known as chai or cha, or shai. Similarly, tea, when it traveled through sea or through water, it has always known as tea or te, as in in Indonesia, or say in Singapore, te tarik is what is popularly known as, or tea in England, or maybe tea in Dutch. So when the English got to know on tea, they started importing tea from China, who at that time was selling three major things: tea, silk, and the porcelain. That was the three main exporting things of China during during the 16th century, 17th century, and British used to exchange silver for tea, and they found it a very expensive affair. So when they entered the subcontinent, they started asking the farmers out here to start growing opium, and they started exchanging opium for tea in China, and this also led to a lot of Chinese were not happy with it because they were not getting their silver. So this also led to the opium war in 1840s, if I'm not wrong, um, and and the whole opium war is what has resulted Hong Kong going to the British. So actually, Hong Kong becoming a British territory was thanks to tea, and which actually led to the Opium War, and that's when British captured Hong Kong. And so tea has a lot of historical significance as well. Like in the US, the Boston Tea Party is very well known. Similarly, in India, we recently had a Chai Pe Charcha by our own dear Prime Minister. So, tea plays a big role in politics and history in general. Very recently, 2 3 months back, in January February, when a lot of countries in the social world tried to group together and create a milk tea alliance. So we saw everyone grouping together and attacking China, where the Chinese social account users were using a name, mnemonic as NMSL. You can Google it later if you wish to know more on it. So all these tea producing, all these milk tea drinking nations got together online, and started taking the online war of social media, using tea as a tool to gather together. So we also had pictures like these coming up on the online social sites, where we had you know Taiwan. So basically, Taiwan is a disputed territory with China, where China says it is part of one country policy, and same with Hong Kong. Hong Kong is going through a lot of unrest at the moment, and it was very interesting to know that how tea is connecting all these people together. So we had Taiwan, Thailand, and Hong Kong coming together. In fact, when India started, we all know of the recent Indo-China dispute that is going on since weeks now. So when India started supporting Taiwan, we had a Indian news journal, news daily coming up with this picture, the Swaraj website, showing how Milk Tea Alliance is helping India and Taiwan to stay together. So tea has actually had a very special role in our history, and the way Indians started drinking tea was very Britishy, I would say, because India never used to drink tea. But what happened was British actually enforced tea on us because once. Most of the tea that the British used to grow in India and in parts of Sri Lanka was meant for export only. But then one bad season, nothing could be exported, and a lot of product was just lying around. So British thought, why not use it locally? That's when they started enforcing tea on us, and initially Indians didn't like it. So that's when like like my professor Kurushar says that you add anything with milk and tea, you ought to have it. So that's when the tradition of milk and milk and sugar started coming in. So that's why in India you have a lot of tea that has milk and sugar on it, because we were never originally a tea drinking nation. So that's how Indians started consuming tea. In fact, the tea break that we normally have these days in our classes, in our offices, it was all about British, putting that culture into us, where the tea break started. There were mandatory tea breaks where people were served tea in the government offices of the British India. And that's when people started consuming tea, started having tea, and tried understanding what tea is all about. But Indian palate was very different. So that is why we would say ki we didn't like the taste of the tea per se. So what really happened was we started adding a lot of spices in our tea because we love our spices, and that's when we really picked up on tea. Be it your cardamom, be it your ginger, be it your saffron. We like all types of things in our tea, and it goes very well with milk as well. So that's how it goes. So moving forward, let me first try to introduce you on what are the tea types in general across the globe. So there are four major tea types, and how do you define tea is based on the manufacturing process. Like I said initially, that the plant is the same, so the leaf is the same. There's no change in the leaf, but it is the process that defines the tea. So you have four main types of tea: black tea, oolong tea, green tea, and white tea. That is how I categorize it. You are free to choose whatever categorization you like. And these four are basically categorized based on the processing. Like white tea is least processed. It is hardly steamed and dried. To keep it simple, I'm not getting into the technicalities. Um, Similarly, the other types are first withered. Withered is where you basically dry it out, then you roll it, you bruise it, you pan fry it, and then you take it forward. So basically, oxidization is the main culprit here, which defines what type of tea it is. If it is highly oxidized, it is black tea. If it is semi-oxidized, it is oolong. If it is not oxidized, it is green tea. White tea is a different category altogether. A lot of people also put white tea as a subcategory of green tea because it is also not oxidized, just like green tea. But I would keep white tea separate, and same goes for your yellow tea. We'll come to that in a later part. So black tea is the regular tea that most of the India consumes. In fact, more than 50% of black tea of the world is produced in India, which is also the largest producer of tea in the world. Black tea has a long shelf life because it is oxidized because of the process by which it is made. It has a very bold and strong flavor, which is what we Indians love. Some popular ones are Assam tea, Darjeeling tea, Nilgiri, Ceylon tea. Ceylon is again Sri Lankan tea. and tea from Kenya. These are all, if you see, these are all British territories. So British was the one that asked us to cultivate the tea plant and go about it. And then you have a lot of exotic offerings these days, where you have a lot of blends, you have a lot of flavors added to the tea in general. Similarly, you have green tea, the most popular one amongst the youth these days in India, at least. Green tea is the one that is getting a lot of people into drinking tea who are actually not original tea drinkers. These are different types of green teas across the globe, primarily China and Japan, because China and Japan is where a lot of so the primary consumption of tea in China is green tea. They don't drink black tea per se. Same goes with Japan, Korea, or that part of Asia, where the tea originally came from. So you have all these different types. You can just have a read. You can also do some googling later on. My personal favorite is jasmine tea, which is the jasmine flavors. The jasmine flavored green tea, which is normally served when you go to restaurants around the globe, which are Oriental restaurants, where they welcome you with a cup of jasmine tea. At times, they also offer you jasmine tea when you are actually moving out of the restaurant or when you're done with your meal. That's how tea is served these days. These are these are a few green teas. Although we call it green tea, they're actually not green in color. If you can see from here, that's again because of the way it is processed. These are some of the benefits of having green tea. A lot of people get into a lot of debate of how green tea actually helps you burn calories or burn fat, but you actually are not being able to do that. A lot of time, the reason being you're not having the right type of tea, you're not having it right, or you're not sipping it properly. So I'll just quickly share details on that as well. Green tea is actually good for your health. Similarly, there's oolong tea, which is again, in between green and black. It's not purely green, not purely black, and that's why a lot of people like oolong tea because of its unique flavoring, and the way it is not highly oxidized, and not too strong, not too light, somewhere in between, and it goes very well with a lot of food ingredients in general. And then you have the white tea. So white tea is very high on antioxidant. It has low level of caffeine. So tea in general has some caffeine, part of the plant. I'll come to that. And the reason why white tea has low level of caffeine is because when brewed at a lower temperature, and a very short time. So the brewing time and the temperature also matters on how the caffeine is impacting your drink. And this is a very labor intensive thing, very hand harvested process of doing the tea, and hence it is very expensive compared to other tea types. It's pure demand supply thing for white tea. Then you have other types of tea, like I mentioned, yellow tea, rooibos. Rooibos is again, it's basically a bush of grown in the western coast of South Africa. It's the morning tea of South Africans. If you are in South Africa, you'll be offered rooibos by default. You won't, and it is very similar to hibiscus, what we have back here. Similarly, you have a lot of scented aromatic flavored teas. These are again, this could be the base could be either green, black, oolong, or white. But then you would have some scent, some aroma, some flavors added to it. Similarly, you would have blended teas, where you will have your fruit-based teas, your spices. Like our masala chai is an example of a blended tea. At times, it is flavored tea as well, because you don't actually have the masalas these days in your chai. You just have the flavor being added to your tea during the time of fermentation, being added by the tea manufacturer. A few health benefits of tea. It has antioxidants. It is immunity booster. It helps you take care of your brain, your heart, your lungs, a lot of body parts. Slows down aging process. Blood, maintains blood pressure, reduces stress. A lot of these benefits are also to do with sipping on hot water. which has tea into it. So if you sip hot water as well on regular basis, most of these health benefits are part of hot water as well. And a lot of these things are yet to be scientifically proven. People are in the process, but then most of them agree that yes, tea has a lot of benefits. Moving on, this is the amount of caffeine as in part of your tea. So herbal tea is normally not your routine tea, and hence it has very it has no caffeine. You have decaf coffee, you have decaf tea, then you have white tea. So white tea is where it all starts, and from white tea, then then you have your green tea, oolong tea, black tea, and then your brewed coffee. So coffee has the highest amount of caffeine. Next is unique teas of the world. Let me show you a few teas that are very very unique to the world. First is Tibetan tea. Tibetan tea is also known as butter tea. It is known as butter tea because it is made of yak milk, if I'm not wrong, and it has a bit of salt into it. So Tibet geographically is very on is on a very high altitude, and hence you've got people needing to burn their fats and to maintain the body vitamins and minerals, and hence they drink their tea accordingly. It's a different process altogether. It's also known as pocha. That's how it is known as locally. And whenever you go to anyone's house in Tibet, you are offered this, and it is always topped up. It never stops flowing in. It's like offering jasmine tea at a Oriental restaurant. The teapot is always refilled unless you ask them to stop it. So here also, if you simply leave your tea bowl untouched, the host knows that you're done with it. But then this is the local tradition. If you're a visitor, they understand that you don't know the tradition, so they don't go ahead with it. They actually ask you these days, and not just keep pouring in, because it's not everyone's cup of tea, as they say. And yes, as the custom goes, it is rude to not accept the initial offer. Even if you don't like or you've never tried, you should at least have a sip, just to respect the other party. That's the case with tea in general. You meet up people on tea. In the offices, there are tea parties. You have a lot of people taking tea breaks, and you basically mingle around tea on a lot of times. Next one is the British tea, the usual black tea that we know as. So although the British is known to have inculcated tea as part of our tradition and things like that, the British still traditionally just boils their water and has it without anything. But because they know, they just don't have tea, they have something or the other with the tea. So there's always a muffin, there's always a cake, there's always a biscuit, something to go with the tea, because of the acidic nature of tea. So but then we in India prefer adding sugar directly in the tea, or honey for that matter. Similarly, in Britain also these days they add honey, sugar, lemon, and also add some milk to their tea. And there are still two sects of people in Britain, where they don't know whether they should pour the milk first in the cup or they should pour the tea first in the cup. A lot of people first pour the milk and then add the tea, because they don't add the milk while they're brewing the tea like we do in India. And a lot of people first add their tea and then add a couple of teaspoons of milk just for the color, is what I say normally. And it also changes the taste a little. A lot of people say that the whole concept of adding two because tea was always hot, and the cold or the room temperature milk always tried to settle it down without going ahead with tea with the hot tea. And the high tea, the British high tea is world famous. You can see in the photo. You have basically three layers of tea. You have the scones, you have the sandwiches, you have the teapot, and you have the tea of your choice. And this is what is famous across the globe. The best place to have high tea in Bombay is in Mumbai is the Taj, where you have the Sea View Cafe, which serves one of the amazing high teas in Bombay. Then you have the Taiwanese tea, which is also known as tapioca tea, which my cousin Himal introduced me to long time back, because he actually started importing tapioca tea in India, and tested the market. Tapioca tea is actually very popular in Taiwan, which is also known as bubble tea, because of the size of tapioca pearls, or pearl milk tea or bubble milk tea. So basically, this isn't actually tea, but it is known as tea. If you have a look at tapioca, or the bubble tea, you will see that it is a milkshake. It is not exactly tea. If you would drink, we drink it as milkshake and not as tea. But that's how it is known as in Taiwan, bubble tea. Then there's panda dung tea. Yes, the excretia of panda. So no, that isn't added to the tea. It is actually the dung which is used as fertilizer, uh, tree plantation, and that is what makes it as one of the most expensive teas as well. This is very similar to wild luwak coffee of Indonesia, which a lot of people have seen, or known as. So the next one, the color, that's basically made of butterfly pea flowers, which is in Thailand. And the interesting part of blue tea is when you add some lime to it, it turns purple because of the acidic nature of lime, and the mixing of lime with the water. Next is tea guanyin. This is a type of oolong tea. It is supposed to be one of the expensive teas in the world, and the reason is because it has some religious context to it as well. At the same time, this again is very expensive, like I mentioned, and you can use a lot of people use the same tea over and over again, unless it loses its flavor, because it is kind of strong. I do have tea guayan in my collection. I can proudly say that, which I procured from Singapore some time back. So that was all about tea and what teas are all about. There are a lot of other teas that we hear of, like Kashmiri kawa. Kashmir also has noon chai. Noon chai is again, which is what do I say? Uh, which has salt into it. So all these hilly regions used to use salt when they were whenever they consume their tea. Similarly, you have Earl Grey tea of Britain, which Lord Earl Grey made it very popular. Earl Grey tea normally has bergamot added to the tea, and it is again one of my favorites, and one of the teas that I started with when I started collecting or consuming tea. So next and the last the last section is useful tips on how to sip it right. So what time, what tea is normally the question. So you start with the stronger ones in the morning with your black teas. As the day progresses, you go to the mellower ones with the green tea or the oolong tea, and then during the early evening or dinner time, you go ahead with the white tea or decaffeinated tea. This is primarily because the caffeine level is less, and caffeine is supposed to impact your sleep pattern, and that is why you go ahead with such a pattern. And in the morning, you need caffeine to awaken your senses and go ahead with the day. Similarly, during the bedtime, you need a few herbal infusions, fruit teas, to basically reduce, calm you down and have a soothing impact on your well-being in general, and have a peaceful sleep. Few points to note while drinking. A lot of people say that tea shouldn't be drank empty stomach, as you know. It basically reduces the secretion of gastric juice and decreases the acid, affects the ability to absorb protein and other nutrients. At the same time, when you have it immediately after meal, it again has a lot of impact on your protein and iron content of the food. It doesn't allow your body to absorb them. That's the myth going around. Science also has some say on it, but I have lived some part of my life in Southeast Asia, and I know that most of the people after their meal have their tea. So it is either the black tea, which is not to be had after meal. You can have it with the meal, like a lot of buffet places normally offer you tea in India and abroad with your buffet. But then after your buffet, once you're done with your meal, in say next 15-20 minutes, half an hour, you shouldn't have tea, is what people say. You may have warm water if you like to help you digest your food. But then at the same time, if you drink extremely hot water, it can again irritate your mouth, throat, and stomach. So a lot of people like the tea very hot. It is actually not good for your health. So there's some certain Celsius which is good. Like a lot of people say that you shouldn't have tea more than 70 degrees Celsius, heated for more than 70 degrees Celsius. So you have to allow your tea to cool down a little and then have it. A few jargons with regards to the process of making tea, which I'll take you through now. So you have something known as infusion. Infusion is basically, you know, you basically make a drink or infuse a drink by placing flavors into a liquid. This could be, like in this case, it is tea, where you have tea or herbs putting in hot water. You also have alcoholic infusions. You have coffee based infusions. This is a generic term used across, and it's basically a process. Similarly, you have decoction. Decoction means that you need to heat or boil something continuously, because the thing is very hard. So you need some heat to be supplied to it for its flavors to come out. So infusion is usually used when you're dealing with flowers or leaves. Decoction is used when you deal with roots and barks. The problem these days is that we mix the two, that is leaves and the barks, and then we don't know what to do. Whether you go ahead with infusion or you go ahead with detoxion, and hence you end up not getting the right flavor out of your tea. So a lot of fusion teas these days don't get it right, and hence spoil your taste and spoil your money as well. Similarly, you have something known as brewing and steeping. So brewing is the actual act of making tea. On the other hand, steeping is the process that is involved. So steeping is actually waiting over a period of time. So once you infuse, then you go ahead with your steeping time. So uh, I'll show you what time to steep and things like that. But how do you go about making your teas? First, you heat your water. So the usual way of making tea in India is using a vessel to do it. But then across the globe, people use teapots to do it. No one makes their tea in a vessel. It's normally the teapot that is used across the globe. That is for a reason, because tea because tea tea some of the agents that come out of the tea shouldn't be mixed with the vessel. The teapot, which is made of primarily ceramic, ensures that there's no mixing happening. Like aluminum and tea can't be mixed together. It gives you a different flavor altogether, which one doesn't want. Similarly, you, the thumb rule is you put one teaspoon of tea for one tea bag of cup. So or say one tea bag per cup, and you add one more for the pot to ensure that you make it a little stronger, or to ensure that the pot is also consuming a little flavor out of the tea. So you give the pot also some tea. That's the thumb rule. So if you're making 4 cups, you add 5 teaspoons. One per cup and one for the pot. Similarly, time what time you steep. depends on what tea are you steeping. In India, it's very common. We put some water on the stove, we add some tea, and we let it brew. But that's not how normally people do it across the globe. So when you actually steep it in the pot, what you do is you first add the tea leaves and then add water. That's what people do in general. And you also have to ensure that the tea is fully submerged, and at the same time, you know these are the time and temperatures which a lot of people look forward to. So a white tea is generally white tea is generally, if it's a tea bag, it's basically brewed for 30, maximum a minute. If it's a full leaf, 2 to 3 minutes, and the water is not boiling. So the water is normally 65 to 70 degrees centigrade, Celsius. Sorry. Similarly, green tea is at 80. Oolong is less than 90. Black tea and herbal tea is where you have a boiling water. So how do you take care? We don't use thermometers or things like that to ensure. How do you check the water is at what Celsius? So you normally see the bubbles, um, gaining momentum in the water. So you have to ensure that the bubbles are your indicators, and accordingly you use the timing, and you use you know the steeping process. Common mistakes that people do: steeping in water that is too hot. You shouldn't, the temperature control is required. Similarly, heating water in microwave. Microwave results in flat, dull water. So the water doesn't allow the tea to properly oxygenate, and hence, microwave is not the thing to do. Similarly, not steeping long enough at times is also doesn't allow the tea to come, bring its flavor out. Similarly, steeping too long makes your tea bitter. This is a common mistake that a lot of people make, and hence they don't like their cup of tea. Howsoever good the tea may be, you know how to burn it out, is what people say, by steeping it for too long. Similarly, squeezing the tea bag. It's a common practice across that you want to squeeze the last part of your tea bag to have that stronger taste. But then you're actually releasing excess tannins, and getting that bitter flavor because of that. So normally don't do that. Again, sugar nullifies a lot of these effects. So if you're having tea with sugar, a lot of these things don't even matter. How do you store your tea? So tea, basically, how you store impacts the freshness, flavor, and quality over the period of time. I collect tea, so I know how maintaining that same flavor, the same taste of tea is very difficult, and it's virtually impossible to do. Use a airtight steel tin to basically block it from sunlight and external odors. Best place to store is in a drawer or somewhere where there's no excess heat or light exposure. Don't keep it near a stove or a dishwasher or a machine or some place where there's a lot of heat emitted on daily basis. And tea also absorbs water or moisture from the atmosphere. So you don't want your tea to mix with the humidity in the atmosphere, like the case in Mumbai. Same as the case with coffee. A lot of coffee, instant coffee, when stored in Mumbai, gets a lot of moisture, and the coffee powder sticks together. So you don't want that to happen. Similarly, tea absorbs odors. So you don't want your tea to absorb odor from the spices or the soap or things like that around. So ensure you don't keep your tea near them. And yes, it is always recommended to drink your tea when it is fresh. Don't keep it for years and years. Although I collect tea and I keep them for years and years, I don't recommend people to do that. Always have your fresh cup of tea. Something on tea tasting. How do you taste a tea? Look at the leaf, brew the tea properly, check the brewing process, look at the brew, smell the brew, taste the tea, note the aftertaste, and then observe the mental and physical effect. Recent trends. This is the last section. I'll just run through it before we start taking the questions. You get tea in these beautiful capsules where all these photos that I've got is courtesy brewlet tea, which brews some wonderful teas in in the city of Mumbai. So you get teas in these capsules where a lot of cafes use them, where they just take it out, brew it, and serve it to you. Um, they look wonderful as well. Similarly, you have a lot of these bottles that come up. A glass or a tea bottle is always good to store your tea. A lot of flavors are there. Like here you can see rose, peach, chocolate, lemongrass, mango. A lot of fruit based teas. Similarly, you have these beautiful boxes that have teas coming in, and yes, you have a lot of tea sets with tea infuser, honey to go with it. Similarly, a lot of places across the globe. This is one of the websites which I referred to while creating this presentation. They have these beautiful tins where they sell the tea. That's the way to go about it, selling the teas. I'd actually procured some very good tea from Sri Lanka into tin, and they still give me the same flavor even after 3 years. I guess that's how you store it. Next is these are some of the recent phenomena in the city of Mumbai and around, where you have a lot of unlike coffee shops, you have tea shops coming up. Chai pe chacha, chai tapri, Maska Chai. A lot of such places have come up, and you have your famous Yevle, which has taken over Mumbai like anything. There are around 100 outlets. It is basically converting your local roadside tea into a proper professional hygienic place to drink your tea. Then you also have your tandoor chai, which is very popular, where you actually have a bhatti where we cook rotis. Uh, uh, and just like you have tandoori roti, you have tandoori chai, where your cup is into the bhatti and you pour the tea. You get that smoky taste into your tea, thanks to the tandoor and thanks to the kullad in which it is put in. These are my sources, Dr. Sorry, Kurush sir. We've got some photos from Brewlet, like I mentioned, and some websites that I refer to: Republic of Tea, the Spruce Eats, Tea Bloom, good blogs, good places to learn more on tea. And finally, this is my collection. These are my tea, coffee, hot chocolates, my honey. It's all there. Less of coffee, but more of other things. This is where I end my stuff, and I'm open for questions now. So I see Dharmesh's question. Firstly, thank you for all of you to join in and listen to the whole thing. Yes, tea goes well with khari biscuit, chai samosa, chai khari. Similarly, I would say that you have do you have good collection of tea or I try collecting tea. Similarly, Yes. Sorry, I got disconnected. So I do have a lot of tea that I collect from across the globe. I hope you can hear me now. Earl Grey British. Yes, Earl Grey is British. That is correct. Yes, Earl Grey is British. Next question that I have is oh yes, Paresh Jijaji, I'll come to Pune for a cup of lovely tea. I have what have is oh yes, Paresh Jijaji, I'll come to Pune for a cup of lovely tea. I have what. Yes, sir. Some tea producers claim that some teas are used to reduce cholesterol, blood sugar, blood pressure, obesity. Yes, a lot of such claims are made. A lot of boiling water also plays a big part, or drinking warm water plays a huge part in helping you doing it. Reducing blood sugar, blood pressure, obesity. If you just have warm water, that will also help you do all these things. But yes, a lot of people claim a lot of tea does a lot of things. So yes, and it's one of the biggest selling industries these days. Where slimming tea, fat free tea, a lot of such things are sold. Next question, please. Which is the best tea in India? I don't know. Whatever tea you like. If you have good company, all teas are good. Um, we love the CTC, the dust tea in India. That's the popular tea that all of us drink. A, a normal, cutting chai across the street vendor that we drink is the one that we like the most. At times we gulp it 4 5 times a day. I have a little different palate for tea, so I drink a lot of tea that is not liked by a lot of Indians. So I don't know whether I like my tea mild. So Indian tea is very strong, Darjeeling as well as Assam tea. The first flush, especially, is liked by a lot of Indians. But I like Ceylon tea, which is Sri Lankan tea, which is very mild compared to Indian tea. Um, for whatever reason it is, but then I like that milder tea compared to the the Ceylon tea. Sorry, compared to the Indian tea. How many tea varieties do I have? I actually don't count my collection. I would have roughly more than 50 to 70 teas now from at least 10 odd countries, if I'm not wrong. I have traveled across Korea, Singapore, UK, US, Middle East, South Africa, Sri Lanka, a lot of places where whenever I go, I always ensure that I pick up my tea from. Even if even a place like Ladakh serves local tea which is actually made in Dharamshala, which is the Tibetan tea, and available in Mumbai as well. I collect even that. Even if you go to Kurg also has a lot of tea around the Nilgiri region. So yes, so tea bag in which form you collection, tea bag or packets? I actually collect both. tea bags help me in in the office atmosphere where you just want a quick tea. You just brew your tea quickly with hot water. Packets or the loose leaf always help you when you have your time in hand at home to make your tea. Fruit tea, yes, fruit tea is what a lot of people like and love. In fact, fruit infusion in tea is always appreciated by a lot of people who don't like strong tea but want to have tea without milk. Fruit tea is the best way to start with because it is sweet. The flavor is relatable. Instead of starting with a oolong or a white tea or some Chinese tea or Japanese tea, which you basically taste for the first time and you do yuck. Instead, start with a fruit tea. It always helps. A strawberry flavored or a orange or lemon. A lot of fruit teas are known to you. The taste is known to you. So fruit tea is always good. Next, please. In Chinese restaurants, jasmine tea is offered after the meal. Is it good? Traditionally, across the globe, it is offered when you enter the restaurant and not after the meal. But yes, at times they do offer after the meal as well. It is good because it is basically warm water which helps you digest your food. A lot of Chinese food is very raw, so when they eat, it is very difficult to digest, and that is the reason why you have tea after the meal. Unlike the Indian food, which is highly cooked, the Oriental food is not very cooked. Like sushi, for example, is very raw. A lot of Chinese food. Let's not discuss food here because a lot of people might just run away when I start talking of them. So yes, a lot of these food are required some kind of burning of fat. So that's why you have tea after meal. Next, please. How do you catalog or keep a track of your tea collection? Do you keep written notes? So, Dharmesh, what I do is I basically have my own labels where I write them down because I have my own containers or bottles where I put my tea. At times, I don't remember which tea I've kept where. Like I have lost my matcha tea in my house since past 6 months, and I'm still not able to get it. So yes, a lot of tea gets misplaced. You don't remember which tea you've kept where. Now I have dedicated shelves thanks to my wife and my sister at home. But then and I keep visiting back to my tea collection on almost daily basis, if not on or say weekly basis, if not on daily basis, because you consume your collection out here, so you have to get back to it. Green tea brand, Tetley is what is very popular with non green tea drinkers in India because it is very mild. So a lot of people like Tetley and can consume it very easily. I would recommend Tetley if someone who just wants a best Earl Grey brand has to be Twinings. There's no other choice on it. Twinings makes some of the best Earl Grey brands. What's the ideal age of tea leaves when it's plucked? It's very fresh, actually, Siddharth, when it's plucked. In fact, the first flush is not had by a lot of people because of this reason, because it is very fresh and it has very high level of caffeine into it. So you should ideally keep your tea, age it at least for 50 days and then start having it. But then a lot of people like first flush and second flush, and it is expensive for that reason. Tibetan tea in Mumbai is very difficult to get. You need to travel to Tibet. There's a Tibetan what do you say doctor based out of Mumbai somewhere in Malad. So Riddhi, I'll text you the details after the session where you can go and have some Tibetan tea. Storage is what the name is of the brand. Okay. Which tea should be best consumed for all the eight sectors? You can consume any tea anytime. That's not a problem. All eight sectors, anytime, any tea is okay. I have my little one also drink tea. There's no such thing as tea is harmful or things like that. Anything had in moderation is not bad for you. Next. Yes, I do plan to start my own tea business, Dharmesh. Thanks a lot for reminding that. I have actually ventured Sri Lanka 2 3 times. I have seen the tea there. I so wish to bring it to India and sell that because it's one of the best teas that I've ever had, and it is not that expensive as well. But the Indian duties actually to protect the Indian local tea manufacturers ensure that the Sri Lankan tea is kept off bay. But yes, I do plan to get into tea business just for the sheer hobby of having my tea. Okay, I any more questions, anyone, or should we just end now? Once again, uh, thank you everyone for joining in and spending that time, taking out that time. Take care.